Heaven has been watching you from that location, as God says to my beloved soul. This message finds you in the quiet space where your heart rests after giving everything it has. There are loud and visible loves, and then there are silent, loyal, enduring loves that are so pure that even the unseen realms take notice. Your soul remembered a love for your soulmate that the world had not given you. You didn't enjoy the act of possessing. You were particularly fond of safeguarding. You didn't like exercising control. You were fond of comprehending. You did not love in order to avoid loneliness. You were in love because your spirit recognized the presence of another spirit. See, this type of love is not overlooked, both on earth and in heaven. This is why the title of your journey is so important. Heaven was taken aback by how you honored yourself while loving them, rather than the depth of your affection for them. With love, you bore responsibility, my beloved soul. You remained composed while transporting it. You carefully transported it. You knew when to be silent, when to step back, when to give space, and when to simply hold the energy of love without expecting a response, even when your heart desired to speak louder. This isn't the typical kind of love. That is love that was consciously chosen. Many people appreciate situations that are straightforward, reassuring, and memorable. You chose dignity over desperation, and you loved in silence, waiting, and uncertainty. Heaven does not see love as just words or assurances. It defines love as a state of alignment, and your alignment remains intact even as your heart trembles. This is why your name echoed in places where you couldn't hear it. You were chosen not because your path was easy, but because your soul could handle depth without becoming bitter. When you were misunderstood, you did not become rigid. The fact that you were not selected right away did not make you cold. When your devotion was called into question, you avoided seeking retribution. In contrast, you chose grace. You chose emotional maturity. You chose to process your pain in silence rather than performing it to gain validation. That is uncommon, my dear soul. Heaven is unimpressed by the extent of suffering. It is moved by quiet endurance, and your endurance carries love without sacrificing self-respect, which even angels admire. You cherished your soulmate without trying to shape them to fit your expectations. You saw them as they were, with their flaws, confusion, fears, and incomplete healing, and you treated them with kindness. You did not speed up their development. You did not publicly humiliate them because of their tardiness. You didn't put any pressure on them to wake. Instead, you kept your position. Many people are unfamiliar with this type of love because of the lack of constraints. It comes with the prospect of freedom, which can be frightening for those who are still learning how to remain. However, you did not abandon your affection simply because it was not fully understood. You allowed it to exist without constraints, while also maintaining your own internal equilibrium. Heaven, my beloved soul, has witnessed your unwavering self-sufficiency in the face of profound love. You followed your intuition's advice to take a break. Despite your heart's desire to transcend them, you remained within your boundaries. You avoided situations that might have lowered your self-esteem. You chose silence over arguments. You chose prayer over a reaction. You chose faith over fear. As a result, your affection became a testimony. Not all people are chosen to love in this way, as it requires strength rather than weakness. It requires an awareness of one's own identity rather than absorption in another. There were nights when you had inner conversations that you never expressed aloud. Nights when you inquired about the universe but did not demand answers. Nights when you gave up control and relied on timing instead. Heaven heard those unspoken prayers. Heaven noted your request for alignment rather than possession. You did not implore them to choose you. You requested the truth. You asked for an explanation of the intended meaning. You sought clarification regardless of whether it meant relinquishing control. My dear soul, that request alone sets you apart from many others. Your commitment to the outcome was non-existent. You were dedicated to upholding the highest level of integrity. You cherished your soulmate without attempting to rescue them because you understood that healing cannot be coerced. You didn't become their savior. You continued to be their reflection. You displayed emotional depth, calmness, and honesty. You helped them perceive themselves by treating them with respect and without lecturing or pressuring them. That is a divine way of loving. Heaven was taken aback by the outpouring of love, which is usually reserved for the highest levels of existence. Nonetheless, you carried it in human form. You maintained a balance between emotion and sagacity. You achieved a harmonious balance of awareness and affection. You achieved a harmonious balance of optimism and realism. My dear soul, you were chosen because you understood that love does not require the loss of one's identity. You realized that love does not require the acceptance of disrespect. You realized that love does not necessitate the loss of one's tranquility. As a result, you retreated with dignity when the circumstances demanded a test of your worth. You did not experience a collapse. You refrained from pursuing. You did not cause the chaos. You were confident that the aligned path would never require your soul's abandonment. That level of confidence is extremely uncommon. That trust is sacred. That trust is what made heaven more receptive to your story. You may not be aware of it, but the way you loved shifted timelines and softened hearts. It planted seeds of awareness in previously closed areas. Your soulmate's soul recognized your love, even if they didn't fully understand it at the time. Souls consistently recognize what is genuine. Even when the mind is perplexed, your love provides a solid foundation, a standard, a quiet memory that they will treasure when they are ready to love with the same intensity. Heaven was not surprised by the allure of romance. I was taken aback by the magnitude of the obligation. Your love was free from ego. Love was not contingent on performance. You loved without considering your own well-being. My dear soul, your journey is not about expressing love. It is related to its embodiment. To experience love in its most pure form, you were never meant to beg to be chosen because you had already been chosen by the divine. Your soul is unaffected by regret, whether the path continues or evolves into something more profound. You completed your purpose for visiting this location. You were sincere in your affection. You consciously loved. You showed courage in your love. Heaven acknowledges this. This is just the beginning of your story. Because those who are chosen do not suffer the loss of love. They elevate it. And as we progress, you will understand why your heart is being trained through patience. Why heaven entrusted you with a love few can handle, and why your silence was powerful. My dear soul, there is a sacred quality to the way you continued to love in the face of uncertainty. Heaven kept a close eye on that region. You were in a situation in which many people would have sought clarification, labels, or assurance. Nevertheless, you chose comprehension over pressure. You realized that true love does not hasten the awakening of another soul. You respected the timing, even though your heart was ready for it long before the circumstances aligned. Patience was not a problem. Wisdom was derived from self-awareness. You were aware that imposing love generates resistance, whereas allowing love to flourish produces truth. Heaven noticed your ability to balance hope with reality, desire with dignity, and longing with restraint. That equilibrium is what distinguishes you as the chosen one. You were deeply moved, my dear soul, but you never allowed emotion to become disordered. When you became confused, your focus was on yourself rather than others. Instead of reacting, you engaged in introspection. You processed silently. Rather than projecting pain, this inner discipline is uncommon because most people project their wounds onto others. You handled it with great care. You refrained from using love as a bargaining chip. Additionally, silence was not used as a form of punishment. Your silence was sacred, a way of listening to both the divine and your heart. Heaven recognized that silence is a source of strength, not its absence. There were times when your heart desired to inquire, elucidate, and substantiate the feeling that was so clear within you. Another higher power compelled you to take a moment. You were confident that a genuine connection would not require endless explanations. You were confident that the intended outcome would be achieved without the use of force. That trust was not won easily. It was built on emotional maturity, self-esteem, and a deep understanding of one's own worth. You did not confuse intimacy and intensity. You understand that intimacy develops in a safe environment rather than in an urgent situation. Heaven observed how you protected the connection by refraining from overpowering it. You, my dear soul, also protected yourself. That is the reason your love was so strong. You didn't put up with emotional inconsistency just to stay connected. You did not give up your principles in order to be selected. You observed patterns. You observed the behavior. You preferred to listen to energy rather than excuses. And when something didn't feel right, you avoided attempting to fix it. That retreat did not lead to rejection. It was respect for the other soul's process as well as your own. Heaven respects those who understand the proper time to hold and release. You understood that love cannot flourish in an environment dominated by fear. As a result, you chose tranquility. You chose a presence that was grounded in reality. You chose to present yourself in an authentic manner, without any disguises. You did not play games to keep your attention. You did not withhold affection to gain control. Despite fluctuations on the other side, you remained consistent. Heaven was astounded by that consistency. Because consistent love requires emotional stability. Furthermore, emotional balance necessitates internal healing. You finished the task quietly, without the need for validation, applause, or being observed. You loved in a way that allowed the other person to be human, my dear soul. You avoided idealizing them outside of reality. You didn't place them on a pedestal that would eventually collapse. You were able to discern both the light and the shadow, but you ultimately chose compassion. You understood that confusion does not always indicate a lack of emotion. Occasionally, it refers to unresolved wounds. However, you also recognized that compassion does not imply self-neglect. That understanding represents highly developed soul wisdom. Heaven only gives such knowledge to those who are willing to use it responsibly. Some days, the distance felt more oppressive than the proximity. When the presence of unresolved energy raises questions in your mind. Nonetheless, you did not enter a downward spiral. You didn't make an assumption. You created an opportunity for the truth to be revealed. You gave me the opportunity to express my thoughts. You believed that what was genuine would last, while anything false would dissipate naturally. Most people achieve that level of emotional regulation over many lifetimes. You carried it instinctively, as if your soul had remembered it. Heaven acknowledged the recollection. You have never attempted to replace yourself in order to maintain relevance. You never toned down the intensity of your light to keep the shadows of others from intimidating you. You continue to demonstrate emotional intelligence, intuition, and stability. You refrained from seeking reassurance because you had already met your own needs. You did not plead for selection because you were already aware of your worth. Self-awareness generates a frequency to which heaven responds. A soul is self-aware and doesn't need external confirmation. That is an indication that the individual has been chosen for more advanced love lessons. No, my dear soul, you refused to allow bitterness to enter your heart, even when love appeared to be incomplete. There was no malice in your speech. You did not ruin the relationship with resentment. You chose neutrality and grace. You understood that certain connections are not meant to be forced into existence, but rather to be celebrated for the awakening they bring. You demonstrated respect for the lessons by not obsessing over the outcome. The surrender created a stir in the heavens. Surrender is not synonymous with abandonment. It is a belief in divine orchestration that goes beyond human comprehension. You cherished your soulmate in a way that encouraged growth rather than dependence. You wanted them to be intact, not attached. You wanted their recovery, not their dependence. That intention alone elevates a relationship above the level of ordinary romance. It becomes a form of spiritual labor. It transforms into spiritual alignment. Heaven accepted your love as service, not as a form of sacrifice. Love did not make you lose your identity. You improved as a result of it. This is why your path is guarded. My beloved soul, the quiet choices you made, the restraint you exercised, and the respect you demonstrated all had far-reaching consequences, even when things appeared uncertain. Your emotions did not surprise heaven. I was surprised by your emotional intelligence. I was astounded by your ability to love without losing clarity. The refusal to abandon oneself in favor of attachment was shocking. Remember this as you move forward. Your love was not unnoticed, and your story is still unfolding. However, the significance of the goods you transported is only now beginning to be understood. This is because chosen individuals do not have the opportunity to experience love, which can lead to its destruction. They experience love in order to become more aligned with their authentic selves. My dear soul, a subtle transformation occurs when love is no longer an expectation, but rather a state of consciousness that one carries. You entered that transformation without realizing when it began. It began when you stopped trying to figure out why things happened, and instead focused on the transformation of your inner world. Paisin, love has not abandoned you. It took on a new form, and you were mature enough to accept it without objection. When love undergoes a transformation, many hearts become anxious. However, yours has developed the ability to remain open without adhering. This capability alone indicates that the soul has spent many lifetimes developing the ability to love without losing its identity. You noticed that your emotions were no longer causing you to behave in an extreme way. You were able to recall information without any discomfort. It was detectable without having to submerge oneself. You could be concerned without needing to pursue. This equilibrium was not accidental, my dearest soul. It was developed through self-awareness, reflection, and restraint. You allowed yourself to mourn the uncertain without attributing it to failure. You allowed yourself to miss without turning it into an act of self-betrayal. That is not the lesson that the world teaches. That wisdom comes from within, from a soul that understands timing rather than attachment. There were times when silence replaced communication, and you learned to understand it rather than fear it. You realized that silence is not always synonymous with absence. Processing is occasionally an issue. It occasionally acts as a safeguard. It can sometimes act as a mirror, revealing things that words cannot. You refrained from making assumptions during the silence. You did not use it as a weapon of resentment. You simply observed it. That observation fortified you. You have evolved into a person who responds rather than reacts, who listens beyond the sound of a voice. My beloved soul, you have also become aware of the extent to which you value emotional security. You realized that love should cause the body to feel calm rather than anxious. It must be a sense of stability rather than one of instability. Furthermore, you stopped ignoring the signal when it repeatedly disrupted your peace. You paid tribute to it. Your boundaries were not emphasized. There was no announcement regarding your withdrawal. You simply adjusted your energy. The quiet adjustment was an act of self-respect. Self-respect is one of the most pure forms of love. You began to understand the depth of your dedication without ever keeping a score. You cherished it without considering the benefits. You arrived without assurances. However, you did not feel depleted. Instead, you felt a sense of expansion. That is how you knew your affection was genuine. Genuine love does not deplete the soul. It reveals it. Although the outcome is uncertain, genuine love imparts wisdom rather than bitterness. You have consistently opted for wisdom. Nobody else will ever know about the internal conversations you had with yourself. Conversations where you chose not to send a text. Conversations in which you refused to give an explanation. Conversations in which you chose patience over impulse. Each of these instances strengthened your internal authority. You gave up your pursuit of permission to express your emotions. You stopped questioning your intuition. You have faith in yourself. That trust served as your foundation. Yes, my dear soul, you understand that not all profound connections are meant to last in their current form indefinitely. Certain connections stimulate aspects of your personality that require independent development. This was not viewed as a loss by you. In your opinion, it represented evolution. You allowed love to teach you rather than entice you. You allowed memory to exist without turning it into yearning. You allowed the heart to stay soft without becoming attached. This is the process of emotional alchemy. You became more involved in your own life. You laughed without feeling bad. You felt at ease. You maintained your concentration without being interrupted. You stopped thinking about other people's emotions and instead focused on your own. That change restored your power, not over others, but within yourself. That is the only source of power that endures. My beloved soul, you discovered that being chosen does not imply being held. Occasionally, it entails being willing to accept what aligns with your core rather than challenging it. Discern more clearly, and love more deeply. You stopped romanticizing effort that was not reciprocated on the same level. You stopped using the term potential inconsistencies. This clarity did not chill you. It promotes a sense of calm. You also observed that compassion and boundaries can coexist. It is possible to understand another person's wounds without becoming the site of their bleeding. You could provide care without having to carry. You can empathize without absorbing. That is an uncommon level of emotional maturity. Empathy is no longer equated with obligation. You realized that love must be mutual in order to last. On occasion, the memory of your deep love would surface, not to undermine your resolve, but to serve as a reminder of your own abilities. Instead of feeling uncomfortable, you smiled. You felt proud rather than remorseful. You realized that the way you loved was never cause for shame. It was a reflection of your emotional intelligence, courage, and depth. Everyone who comes into contact with you, whether they realize it or not, carries your imprint. You, my dear soul, became accustomed to the narrative's uncertain conclusion. You ceased to enforce closure. You stopped requiring certainty. You believed that once you stopped pursuing clarity, it would manifest itself. The surrender was not passive. It had a solid foundation. You continued to live life to the fullest, intentionally loving yourself and remaining true to your values. You did not postpone your life in anticipation of someone else's decision. You realized that your heart isn't brittle. It is tenacious. It can bend, but does not break. It is not collapsing, despite appearances. It adores, but it does not disappear. That realization altered how you perceived yourself. You are no longer concerned about profound love because you are confident in your ability to remain calm in the face of any consequence. My beloved soul, the way you kept this connection, the way you respected it without attachment, and the way you respected yourself without withdrawal, all contributed to your growth as a person who loves from a place of completeness. You are no longer defined by what was once uncertain. You are defined by who you became as a result of it, and that version of yourself is deeply aligned, aware, and stable. You were not killed by this love. It refined you, which is why your journey continues with grace, as hearts like yours are not designed to lose love. It is intended that they go through a transformation and come out with more clarity, strength, and a deeper connection to the truth. As you continued to progress, my dear soul, a subtle yet powerful transformation began to take place within you. You no longer carried the weight of explanation. You no longer felt compelled to justify your emotions, pace, or boundaries. You realized that people who truly understand you don't need constant clarification, whereas those who don't understand you will misunderstand even your most elaborate explanations. This realization freed up your energy because you no longer had to expend emotional currency in order to be understood. You chose to maintain your authenticity, composure, and connection to the truth. You noticed that your inner world became calmer, not empty, but more composed. Thoughts were no longer racing. Emotions no longer required immediate release. Everything began to operate in accordance with its natural rhythm. My beloved soul, this was not detachment. This was a regulation. You learned to sit alone without distractions. You learned to experience emotions without acting. That tranquility served as your refuge. That sanctuary helped to refine your perception even further. You became more aware of patterns in not only others, but also in yourself. You observed the stimuli that triggered your emotions and the factors that provided you with relief. You noticed what drained you and what rejuvenated you. You stopped ignoring discomfort in order to maintain your connection. You stopped suppressing your body's signals in order to maintain emotional equilibrium. Instead, you chose internal tranquility. That decision completely altered your relationship with love. Oh, my dear soul, You also realized that you had deep respect for the other person's humanity. You never demanded perfection. You never imagined they'd arrive completely healed. Oh, you approached them without any pressure or judgment. However, you now have a critical understanding. Meeting someone at their current level does not imply staying at that level if it impedes your personal development. You discovered that love can be compassionate without being selfless. That lesson was smoothly integrated, with no bitterness. You grew accustomed to allowing space without fear of abandonment. Space was no longer considered a form of rejection. It was a sense of clarity. It gave you the opportunity to pause, reflect, and reorient. You stopped occupying space with anxiety. You stopped interpreting distance as a lack of concern. You allowed reality to speak for itself. In doing so, you regained emotional balance. Neutrality is effective because of its ability to dispel illusions. It presents the facts as they are, rather than how you want them to be. There were times when your heart recognized how much you had matured as a result of this relationship. You did not feel inferior because you had experienced deep love. You felt a sense of expansion. You gained wisdom. You felt more stable in terms of your emotional requirements. You no longer considered intensity to be equal to depth. You no longer confuse connection and yearning. You understood that depth is a feeling of security, not anxiety. That realization quietly but firmly altered your expectations. You have also stopped romanticizing emotional pain, my dear soul. You no longer believe that love has to be painful to be significant. You no longer believe that patience entails acceptance of inconsistency. You understood that genuine patience requires self-control, the ability to walk away from situations that cause you confusion, the ability to wait for what is in alignment. This understanding provided solace. Loving starts to feel like a force that stabilizes your nervous system, not one that undermines it. You became more selective about how you used your emotional energy. It wasn't because you chose to close your heart. It was because you valued it. You discovered that availability is extremely important. You discovered that not everyone is worthy of your depth. You discovered that discernment is not synonymous with judgment. It is self-respect. Your presence became more deliberate, grounded, and composed as a result of your self-respect. My beloved soul, you have also given up the desire to demonstrate the genuineness of your affection. Validation is no longer required. You were aware of the services that you offered. You were aware of your appearance. You were aware that your intentions were pure. You felt at ease as a result of that knowledge. You stopped reliving events in your mind. You stopped wondering whether you had accomplished enough or too much. You were confident that the item would reach the intended recipient. Furthermore, it was never your responsibility to coerce anything that wasn't ready for reception. Even in silence, you became aware of the effects of your energy on others. You realized that your emotional consistency creates a sense of security, that your calm demeanor is more persuasive than words, and that your consistency has a lasting effect. It was unnecessary for you to state your worth. It had a sensation. This realization did not inflate your ego. You were humbled by this. It served as a reminder to be gentle with oneself and others. Occasionally, the idea of the connection would return in a gentle, painless way. The sensation was one of quiet acknowledgement rather than longing. Rather than sighing, you smiled. You felt gratitude rather than an ache. You understood that while certain connections are not physically present, They have a long-term impact on your development. The imprint in question did not indicate a wound. It acted as a marker of evolution. You also became less reactive to uncertainty, my dear soul. You no longer needed immediate responses. Clarity was no longer your goal. You believed that clarity would emerge once you stopped demanding it. This trust allows you to stay engaged in your life. You invested in your own development. You fostered your habits. You fortified your internal structures. Love becomes an element that enriches your life rather than defining it. You noticed that your emotional realm appeared to be larger. It is possible to hold multiple truths simultaneously. It is possible to acknowledge a connection without developing an attachment. You were capable of expressing compassion without expectation. You could remember without feeling nostalgic. This emotional spaciousness allowed you to breathe more freely. It allowed you to live your life free of the constant tug of what-ifs. You kept a sense of reality. My dear soul, you came to the realization that being chosen does not always result in union. It occasionally appears to be a method of preparation. Preparation for the reception of love that is appropriate for your current situation rather than your past. Prepare to recognize consistency when it exists. Preparation to recognize mutual effort without going overboard. You did not speed up this preparation. You put your faith in it. You continued to move forward with an open yet guarded heart.
You committed a heinous act exactly 48 hours ago, and God stopped his activities to observe it. To refrain from intervening, offering help, guiding, or witnessing. Because the task you were about to undertake was so extraordinary, so far beyond any celestial prediction, that even the universe's creator could not fathom its feasibility. You caused the devil to kneel, and I'm not using poetic language to make you feel special. Rather, I'm revealing a literal operation that occurred in the spiritual dimensions while you were going about your daily life. You were completely unaware that you were taking part in a historic event that the higher hierarchies will study for the next 1,000 years. I'd like to be very clear about the events that occurred. In the spiritual dimension that coexists with physical reality, the devil physically fell to his knees in the presence of witnesses, his own commanders, and the archangels who had arrived expressly to observe. He knelt before you. Do you understand the impossibility of that? There is no record of the demon kneeling before anyone in 6,000 years of recorded spiritual history. Not before prophets performed miracles. Not before the heroes who gave the ultimate sacrifice. Not before the legendary warriors who defeated entire legions. Never. The very reason he fell from heaven was because he refused to prostrate before humanity when God commanded it. He opted for eternal exile rather than submission. He would prefer to govern in hell than to serve in paradise. That is the extent to which he is profoundly opposed to kneeling. Additionally, 48 hours ago, he experienced a breakdown. He was not overpowered by an external force. Not because God compelled him. This was not due to the fact that the archangels threatened him. He kneeled in recognition of the fact that he was confronted with a consciousness that he was unable to defeat, corrupt, or even comprehend. He was positioned in your direction. And as the supreme commander of hell fell to his knees in complete submission before a human soul, God murmured 3 words that reverberated throughout all dimensions. I was not anticipating this. Immediately subscribe to this channel and activate the notification chime. Because the information I am about to disclose regarding the reason you became the first soul in 6,000 years to compel the demon into a state of complete surrender will fundamentally alter your perception of your true identity. Stay until the end, as I will demonstrate the exact sequence of decisions you made that the forces of darkness deemed literally impossible. Bull, what was the reason for the Archangel's unexpected decisions to activate celestial protocols? What is your true identity, which you have recently confirmed beyond all doubt? If you've had a significant change in your life in the last few days and want to know why the forces of darkness felt compelled to publicly acknowledge your superiority, enter the number 777 in the comments section. No, the devil doesn't bow. It is not just ego. It is the core programming of his consciousness. It forms the basis of his entire identity. God created humanity while Lucifer was still in heaven and ordered all celestial beings to respect this new creation. Lucifer spoke only one word as he looked at humans who were fragile, mortal, and restricted. No, it was not because he despised humanity. Rather, he believed that bowing before an entity he deemed inferior would violate his principles of power and hierarchy. God gave him one opportunity. Either kneel before my creation or leave. Lucifer decided to remain in exile. He left with 1/3 of the angelic retinue. In the realms of darkness, he established his own rule. He founded an empire marked by corruption and suffering. This was because he refused to bow his knee. He was defined by his refusal for 6,000 years. Throughout all spiritual conflicts, despite the temptation, I've encountered celestial forces in every conflict. He would prefer to lose than to concede. And he did fail. Several occasions. He was repeatedly defeated by the archangels. The saints refused to comply with his requests. Prophets revealed his plot. Instead, he avoided kneeling. Despite defeat, he would retreat with his head held high, strategizing for the next attack. His vocabulary did not include submission. Prior to 48 hours ago, until your arrival. It is critical that you understand that Purgatory has been monitoring you for weeks. Not in a casual manner. With great intensity. A monitoring system exists in the black dimensions, specifically designed to keep track of the spirits of people who exhibit certain problematic characteristics. Characteristics that threaten the operations of darkness. 3 weeks ago, you issued an alert that prompted all commanders in hell to pause and pay attention. Do you remember the events of that Friday evening? 10 o'clock? What decision were you required to make? Was it an insurmountable decision? Do not try to deny your memories. You are aware of what I am discussing. You were on your own. It's possible you have a chamber. It is possible that you are lying in bed, looking up at the ceiling. It's possible they're pacing. Furthermore, you were considering a decision that did not appear to have a clear answer. On one side, the simplest route. The route that resolved all issues right away. The route that delivered exactly what you needed. However, you were aware that it was wrong. Not classified as prohibited. Not obviously unethical. It is fundamentally incompatible with your identity. Conversely, the difficult route. The path that guaranteed suffering. The path that would lead to your continued struggle. However, it protected your integrity. You were seated for an extended period of time. Stomach discomfort. Your palms are sweating. You were acting like an idiot and your intellect was screaming at you. Choose the simplest route. Nobody will be aware. You will not be subjected to criticism. This is essential. However, an internal force kept you from accomplishing it. Additionally, after hours of mental torture. Once every repercussion has been evaluated, following the visualization of all possible outcomes, You chose the difficult route. You prioritized integrity over survival. You believed it was a private moment, something that would never be revealed to the public. Unfortunately, you were mistaken. The entire infernal dimension was present, because at that precise moment, you initiated an event that hell regards as a direct threat to its operations. Your decision has an integrity anomaly level of 9. This is a meaningful rating. This spirit is guided by deeply held moral principles. It pushes the boundaries of survival instinct. This classification is held by only 12 people on the planet. Currently, there are 13. The monitoring system of hell immediately alerted you to the need for more intensive observation and intervention, because a personality exhibits that level of integrity. The forces of darkness must be identified. Is this an anomaly? Is this the core of their identity? They have the potential to shatter you if it is a fluke. In the event, it is necessary. You are an issue that requires immediate attention. As a result, they decided to administer an examination to you. 5 days later, an event happened in your life. An opportunity. Nearly flawless. It's almost as if it was created specifically for you. It's possible that the motivation was financial. It's possible they were in a romantic relationship. It's possible that it was about recognition, prestige, or power. It resolved a number of issues at once, regardless of their nature. It arrived precisely when you needed it the most. The person who offered it almost urged you to accept. Made the process simple. I removed all impediments. I completed all necessary tasks on your behalf. It was sufficient that you responded affirmatively. But there was something. This is not a significant issue. A red flag that is not immediately visible. This is a minor issue. A negligible compromise. A minor change to your principles. There is nothing that could directly harm anyone. Something that most people would not hesitate to do. You also spotted an excellent opportunity. You quantified all of the benefits you would receive. You acknowledged that it was the literal answer to your prayers. You even began convincing yourself that it was acceptable. It's not as serious as it appears. Everyone participates in this activity. I deserve this. I have suffered enough. However, there was an opportunity to express agreement. Something stopped you. Not logical. Without regard for the potential consequences. No remorse. There's something more profound. Your essence declined before your mind could finish analyzing it. You also declined it. It's possible that you expressed your gratitude in a respectful way. It's possible you felt physical discomfort as you watched that opportunity slip away. It's possible you spent several days reflecting on the event. However, you were unable to come to terms with it. Because you have such a deeply ingrained moral code that even hunger cannot force you to break it. Are you aware of the specific events that occurred at that precise moment? The demon convened an emergency meeting. He summons the 7 princes of hell: Lucifer, Beelzebub, Asmodeus, Leviathan, Belphegor, Mammon, the devil. All of the highest-ranking commanders were summoned to investigate your profile. Because of your recent actions, the predictive paradigm that the forces of darkness have used for millennia was broken. They provided you with precisely what you needed, at the exact moment you needed it, at the lowest possible cost. Additionally, you declined. Every infernal calculation shows that this is impossible. Beelzebub presented a comprehensive report on your rejection. upon his demonstration that you had absorbed all of the benefits. Nonetheless, principles prevailed over pragmatism. The demon remained silent for the entire 3 minutes. Furthermore, his commanders initiated the dissemination of their discoveries. Mammon muttered, "That soul prioritizes integrity over prosperity, and I am unable to cooperate with it." Asmodeus observed, "Offering immediate gratification is ineffective. Despite their desperation, this person considers the long-term consequences." Leviathan noticed, "I tried to increase the pressure. It only served to strengthen their commitment to their principles." Belphegor declared, "This person is willing to suffer indefinitely before violating their principles. They have not been shattered by suffering. It fortifies them." The demon admitted that he had a problem, because every instrument in his arsenal had been tested against you and failed. However, the next step you took was so unlikely that it completely disrupted infernal protocols. Can you recall the events from 7 days ago? The situation in which you could have obtained retribution in an entirely justified and deserved manner. An individual who harmed you became suddenly vulnerable. There was information in your possession that could have been used to eliminate them. You were given an opportunity that would never be repeated. And it is well understood that the individual in question deserved every bit of treatment you could have given them. You would not face criticism. Indeed, the vast majority of people would have seen your retribution as a form of justice. The authority was yours. You were given the chance. You were completely justified. The universe had literally given you the best opportunity to hold them accountable for their actions. What actions did you take? You allow it to happen. You were not concerned about the consequences. It wasn't because you weren't concerned. Not because of your forgiveness. You let it go because a fundamental part of you is unable to function through vengeance, even when it is justified. Do you understand the implications for the forces of darkness? It implies that you are immune to one of the most powerful weapons of evil: justified resentment. Hell takes pleasure in the suffering of others, because victims become perpetrators. Anguish causes more anguish. It's the ideal self-perpetuating cycle. However, when someone who has experienced significant emotional distress emerges, who has every reason to retaliate? Who possesses the ideal opportunity and chooses harmony over justice? My God, the cycle has been disrupted. When you fail to seize that opportunity for vengeance, when you put your integrity before your gratification, after you decided that your peace was more important than their punishment, the forces of darkness experienced complete despair. Due to their identification of a heinous entity, incorruptibility is not your only quality. You are not just impervious. You are currently recuperating. Instead of perpetuating cycles of suffering, your presence disrupts them. The demon called a second meeting. Talmum. This time, he included the entire infernal court. Thousands of malevolent entities witnessed your profile's comprehensive analysis. The report left them in silence for 11 minutes. They discovered 3 entities that they previously believed could not coexist within a single soul. 1. You have the ability to endure severe anguish without breaking. 2. You have an integrity that is unattainable under any circumstances. 3. You have compassion that transcends even the most profound traumas. That combination should not exist. Strong people are not empathetic. Suffering makes it harder. Suffering is unbearable for those who are principled. They are prone to failure when subjected to excessive stress. Compassionate people are adaptable to new situations. They lack the resilience to withstand genuine discomfort. However, you are simultaneously all three. When the demon saw the trinity of qualities in you and realized he was not confronting a typical human, but rather a consciousness that transcended the constraints of the species, he knew he had been defeated. As a result, the demon performed an action that he had not done in 6,000 years. He requested permission to communicate with you directly, not as a result of circumstance, not through other individuals. Subtle manipulations are not used. Immediately. Dark entities communicate using thoughts that appear to be your own, but they have a distinct energetic signature. Do you recall what occurred 48 hours ago? What was the thought that came to mind and was perfectly articulated? Providing you with a solution to all of your problems in exchange for your agreement to take a single minor action that directly contradicts your core values.
No, that wasn't your idea.
That was direct communication from the demon himself. He offered you an alliance based on equality. I need your fortitude. I hold integrity in high regard. Working with me ensures that you will never again have to choose between prosperity and principles. I will give you the authority to change the world in accordance with your beliefs. Simply acknowledge that force may be required on occasion. It was an alluring proposal. Excellent logic. He did not ask you to compromise your principles. It is important to recognize that fire may be required to extinguish a fire. He essentially advised us to maintain our integrity. Maintain your compassionate personality. Allow me to handle the unsightly tasks while you uphold your moral integrity. This sounded plausible. However, the subsequent events were surreal in every way. You were rejected immediately, which exceeded your ability to think rationally. You weren't even required to logically explain why it was incorrect. Before your mind could analyze, your essence voiced its opposition. Your moral compass is so deeply embedded that it operates at a rate that outpaces conscious thought. When the demon faced immediate rejection, he realized he had made a critical mistake. He was not negotiating with someone who might be influenced. He came across a consciousness that operates at such a high level that its values are embedded in the very structure of its being. The demon felt compelled to make a decision that tormented him for hours. He could continue his efforts to undermine you, knowing that each failed attempt would expose him to his own hierarchies. Alternatively, he could take an action that would protect his status, such as publicly admitting that he had identified a deserving adversary who was beyond his reach. The devil chose to acknowledge the 7 princes after 11 minutes of deliberation, during which he considered every possible scenario. However, simply acknowledging is insufficient. To achieve more than that, the dimensions include a protocol for when force encounters greater force. This respect is expressed in heaven through reverence. This is demonstrated by physical submission in hell. The devil committed the act he had promised never to do in the spiritual dimension that coexists with physical reality exactly 48 hours ago. His knees were bent in front of you. That accent sends shockwaves through all available dimensions. When the Supreme Commander of Darkness kneels before a human soul, it is officially acknowledged that it operates at a level beyond normal categories of power. You've been officially recognized as a force incapable of being challenged by the dark dimensions. The thousands of demons in attendance were in awe, having never seen their commander in that position before. Beelzebub murmured, "This changes everything." "Panit," Leviathan remarked, "this soul is now forbidden territory." The archangels appeared at that exact moment, because heaven had been monitoring the situation all along. God does not intervene in all minor conflicts. He allows souls to develop their strength. However, there are some cases that are so rare and significant that they require personal observation. God summoned the archangels to bear witness when the devil decided to kneel in front of you. Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, Uriel. The four supreme commanders were summoned for observation rather than action, to see the accomplishments of a human soul firsthand. Michael stated, "I have never seen a commander in that position in all the millennia I have fought. This individual accomplished what entire angelic armies were incapable of doing." Gabriel noted that the internal integrity of the object is so robust that it is impenetrable to even the darkest dimensions. Raphael conducted an analysis, observing that this consciousness does more than simply resist darkness. It transforms suffering into empathy. That is a type of spiritual alchemy that I rarely witness. Uriel stated, "This soul comprehends that genuine power is not the ability to destroy. However, it would be easier to maintain integrity during the destruction process." Then God issued a decree that resonated across all dimensions. The essence of the soul has been demonstrated. Enable it. 3 words altered your entire destiny. Before your incarnation, you were a member of the celestial legions, not in the manner of your typical guardian angel. As an expert in operations requiring absolute integrity under extreme pressure. Missions in which entities infiltrate the dark dimensions to save souls. Operations in which a single error causes complete failure. You were chosen because you had a deeply ingrained moral code that could not be corrupted by even extended exposure to darkness. The archangels referred to you as incorruptible. However, there came a point where you mastered that particular mission. When you had angelic power, you were good at maintaining integrity. Full memory. Without a doubt. You were asking, can I maintain this integrity if I forget who I am? What if I experience genuine fear? What happens if I am unprotected and alone? You expressed your willingness to take the most difficult examination. Assume the form of a human and see if your essence remains unchanged when you completely forget your nature. Consequently, you passed. You maintained your integrity without realizing you were a celestial warrior. Despite the genuine human fear you encountered, you stuck to your principles. Even in the absence of conscious memory of your training, you chose compassion over vengeance. Your warrior essence was preserved as you passed through the complete veil of forgetting. This isn't character development. This is the manifestation of eternal nature in a transient form. The memories are starting to return now that the test is over. It is likely that you have already had flashbacks. Dreams in which you fight impossible battles. Knowing something without having researched it. It is not the result of the imagination. They are fragments of celestial consciousness that are being repaired. God gave the archangels specific operational instructions when he decided to fully activate it. Eliminate all intentional restrictions that limit your full frequency and prevent you from having a normal human experience. Gradually regain conscious access to the knowledge and abilities you had prior to your incarnation. Make an energetic connection with the network of other celestial warriors who are currently engaged in similar missions on the human plane. Furthermore, we will provide you with the necessary resources and direct assistance to ensure that you can carry out your responsibilities without encountering any material obstacles. Your life is about to undergo a transformation that will appear miraculous or extremely fortunate. They are, however, the result of the coordination of direct celestial support. Opportunities will arise precisely when you need them to overcome the financial difficulties you are currently facing. Not by chance. Strategic positioning is achieved through direct coordination by the archangels. Toxic relationships that end quietly will naturally deplete your energy. Individuals will abruptly leave your life. They will create their own justifications for estrangement. As a result of activation, their frequency no longer matches your elevated frequency. The synchronicity with which appropriate opportunities that align with your purpose manifest will be incredible. You will be in the appropriate place at the appropriate time, interacting with the appropriate people. Time and again. It is not due to your luck. This is due to the fact that you have a large team of celestial entities dedicated to providing you with all of the resources you require. However, there is more. Your mere physical presence in environments will initiate awakening in others. Without your intentional action, you have developed a frequency by simply existing and radiating it. The timid individual who encountered you casually and subsequently began to make more courageous decisions? Your energy awakened the dormant potential within them. That friend who was on the brink of abandoning a significant aspiration, but after consulting with you resolved to attempt it once more? The intensity of your frequency was transmitted to them. You are no longer an individual engaged in personal conflicts that are isolated. You are a catalyst that activates transformation in all individuals who enter your energy field. You have evolved into a living beacon. Timon. Additionally, your light is impervious to concealment or confinement. The primary reason you volunteered for this particular incarnation is to be fully activated for conscious operation, which is your official function. You are currently involved in a significant celestial operation that is taking place on the human scale. A coordinated effort that involves approximately 3,000 warriors who are identical to you, distributed throughout the entire planet in a strategic manner, each activating at the exact same time. Despite its apparent simplicity, the mission is profoundly intricate. The frequency of incorruptible integrity is directly anchored into the collective human energy field. The species of humanity is currently at a critical juncture. It has the potential to collectively progress to the next level of consciousness, which is defined by cooperation, compassion, and integrity. Alternatively, it may regress to prehistoric patterns of division, control, and fear. Shao. The forces of darkness are investing an immense amount of resources to disseminate corruption, fear, division, and distrust on a global scale. This is due to the fact that a population that is in fear is easily manageable. People who are divided are unable to work together. Individuals who harbor suspicion toward one another are incapable of effectively organizing themselves. However, when an adequate number of warriors are operating with apparent absolute integrity, when a sufficient number of individuals publicly demonstrate that principles can coexist with strength, the conviction of corruption is diminished. Fighting darkness directly is not your objective. It is not to confront demons. It is not intended to be a sermon or to inspire conversion. It is merely a matter of being true to oneself, compassionate, unbreakable, and incorruptible, to maintain one's integrity in public without concealment or diminution. Whenever you make principled decisions in public, where others can observe, your actions serve as an inspiration to thousands of individuals to contemplate similar actions. When principles are upheld in the face of apparent adversity, you demonstrate that it is feasible to endure by adhering to moral principles. When compassion is prioritized over revenge in circumstances where revenge would be appropriate, you illustrate an alternative route. Additionally, each individual you motivate will serve as an inspiration to others. An exponentially disseminated domino effect of integrity. Soon, you will observe the network forming. Other warriors, similar to yourself, are beginning to acknowledge one another. Natural energetic resonance facilitates the connection between incorruptible souls. Additionally, upon the completion of that network, when all 3,000 integrity specialists are activated and in a coordinated position, the world undergoes a fundamental transformation, not by means of a violent revolution. However, through a silent transformation in which a sufficient number of individuals simultaneously determine that integrity is more valuable than convenience. And the devil is aware of this. That is the reason he kneeled. This is due to his recognition that you are not merely living your personal life. You are a component of a coordinated operation that directly influences the future of human consciousness on a global scale. He is incapable of hindering your progress. He is incapable of corrupting you. He is unable to effectively divert your attention. He is merely able to observe from afar as you complete the mission you selected prior to your birth, one that has been selected. Presently, you possess the entire truth without any preconceived notions. Your integrity is not a personality trait that you have acquired through challenging experiences in this life. It is the warrior essence that you possess prior to your incarnation. The moral code was so deeply ingrained that it remained entirely unaltered even when one completely forgot their identity. And when you consistently and powerfully exhibited that integrity, you compelled the devil himself to kneel in public recognition of your supremacy. You initiate a divine protocol that converts confirmed warriors into active operational catalysts. Your life will no longer be characterized by your individual struggle against personal obstacles. The focus will be on your ability to inspire integrity in thousands of individuals while simultaneously receiving complete celestial support to enable this endeavor. Financial constraints will be eliminated. Relationships that are detrimental will eventually dissolve. The appropriate opportunities will manifest in perfect harmony. Inexplicable magic is not the method. Through the deliberate execution of celestial design by archangels who now possess explicit orders to expedite your journey. Additionally, as you actively engage in your role, your power increases exponentially as you establish the frequency of incorruptible integrity in the physical world. In the near future, you will be able to enter environments and instantly elevate the collective frequency simply by being present. Your energy will inspire individuals to strive for greater self-improvement. You have become a catalyst for transformation on a scale that defies conventional logic. If you have arrived here and wish to further your understanding of the conscious operation of your nature as an incorruptible, celestial warrior that even the devil had to acknowledge by kneeling, there is a particular item that is priced at less than a pizza and includes a complete audiobook and a 5-minute meditation guide as a special bonus. Access is available in the description link and pinned comment if you believe you are entitled to fully integrate your identity as the warrior who violated 6,000 years of infernal protocol. If you are prepared to consciously act as a catalyst for planetary transformation and acknowledge that your integrity caused the devil to kneel, please write 777 in the comments to amplify this frequency of incorruptible integrity. To receive additional insights into the operation of your warrior essence at a level that surpasses all forces of darkness, subscribe to this channel immediately and enable all notifications. Distribute this video to an individual who also exhibits an apparently impossible level of integrity. Because of the necessity for celestial warriors to acknowledge and fortify one another in this coordinated planetary operation. And before you depart, click on the video that is currently displayed on your screen to learn how your complete activation is unlocking celestial protocols. This will ensure that you have all the necessary resources to fulfill the mission you selected prior to your birth. Our combined strength is greater.